Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, criminal court, and other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Perz. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. And if you have a story to tell, you're also welcome to contact me there as well on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. I'm very happy to have a new guest on. Her name is Marianne Perz. She's a former national team athlete for ultramarathon running for Canada. She's a mediator in civil procedure and in family matters for over 22 years. Her daughter remained stolen from her due to forgery of signatures on adoption papers that the court and government is aware, but they are concealing it. In 2011, her daughter was stolen by the government by using Children's Aid Society, which is CPS over there in Canada. A birth alert was waiting for her when she gave birth based on a false hair strand test in February of 2009, which was used against her in a family court case over her two other children. It is now proven that the test was false. Despite that, this was found and that she took no drugs, and CPS was given temporary interim custody of her daughter without her even given notice. The temporary order allowed CPS to take her daughter at 7 a.m. on Friday out of the hospital when she had not even regained her birth weight. Now, she lost her case over her sons as their father got custody as a judge deemed that she was late for the hearing out of a default because she didn't hear the page overhead in the courthouse. Now, she spent all funds. She had to fight for her daughter to the amount of far greater than $100,000 as she had to borrow to pay legal expenses. Now, CPS argued that she breastfed rather than bottle fed, and that the bond was awkward between mother and daughter, and that she was nervous during the access visits, wherein the video recorded the mother breastfeeding. Now, she spent about $50,000 to have the CPS motion dismissed, but they kept her daughter, and the matter dragged on for another year and a half. The the CPS filed a second summary judgment motion, this being strange as they lost the first one, but the rules seemed to bend for them. CPS tried separating her daughter and her from all contact, not even the twice a week, so that she spent another 40,000 on a lawyer to get back access to her daughter. Now she lost everything. She lost her house. In 2013, the bank foreclosed. All funds went to lawyers. She tried to get her daughter back, ended up in Ottawa to live with her aunt and uncle without any vehicle as it was impounded. These stories basically, from what I hear, not are all the same. They're somewhat different. And it really doesn't matter what country you're in because the same thing's happening everywhere. So I welcome you, Marianne Perz, to the podcast. Where are you
Thank,
at now with everything?
thank you, Marianne, and thank you for having me. Um, I have been trying for several years, for I'd say 13 to 14 years straight since this all happened, to find a way to get her back to her home, my daughter. The most pivotal issue that I've really spent a long time on the last sort of 7 or 8 years has been that my signature was forged on documents. And I know it's a very long story because it was pretty much like a couple of witch hunts rolled in together and very torturous to try to get something that didn't exist, meaning any kind of a deeming of me being incapable as a parent. In Ontario, they have a name for it. The Children's Aid Society makes money every time they get a child deemed in need of protection. So it's they I don't know exactly how much, but they have a quota. So it was a witch hunt, and the strangest thing will happen when I had a lawyer who assaulted me and had a history of sexual assault on children, pedophile, and he forged my signatures when he felt rejected, that I didn't want anything to do, and that was awful.
Mhm.
So where do we start, Marianne?
Yeah.
I mean,
All our cases are convoluted, they're
yeah,
multifaceted. You know, apparently, when we were talking earlier, you were saying that a sibling has your daughter.
yes.
How did that happen? Did, uh, there was a foster mother involved as well, that was a bridge to the sibling?
The there was a foster parent that they had Children's Aid Society uses that and to house to sort of house the children. They placed my daughter. It didn't seem to matter what ended up happening to my daughter. They just needed to make the split and the trauma. It seemed to me that there was a lot in the case of my daughter that there was problems in the family and there was a lot of estrangement, and the Children's Aid Society and sort of family court whips that up and brews it into a big spell. There were problems. My sibling and his wife in Alberta at that time had been used as pawns to be brought in. I mean, I mean, when we get to the very detail, I can explain how my past lawyer, John David Coon, and that's on public record. He's incarcerated right now.
Mhm.
Actually did maneuver that whole thing when nobody could get a court order. Nobody was able to find any finding on me as an incapable mother or as any kind of problem, so that it resorted to that. But anyway, sorry, but to answer your question, my brother and his wife were had been asked to do it, and I think however they got themselves into the situation, once they got her, they were absolutely so cruel to me,
Mhm.
and just played into the whole thing. It's
Mhm.
absolutely cruel, and they still have her.
Mhm. So would it be like kinship care, like from CPS to foster care, and then they found a sibling that they could give this child to?
Yes, very good question because the crime that I understand happens with, and we'll find this in family court too, even between parents, but particularly in CPS matters, is that the crime is to break the bond of a protective parent to a child. That's the crime. And once they have broken that and done something, separated it, engineered it, socially engineered it to try to break it, it doesn't really matter where they place the child. So in
Mhm.
my case, they had to find somewhere. They wanted to deem their child in need of protection, which is the Children's Aid Society, and then what they were able to do based on that is they got what they needed, money was made, and then adoption was all the kinds of money, piles of money was made, and then they just had to throw her somewhere where they sort of knew it was, they sort of put some, and if it's a family member, they love this because they give the illusion to the public that we're doing a nice thing. But
Hmm.
in fact, when they brood up a storm or when they pick up other family members, they in fact put your child, my daughter, into a worse gilded cage than even if she didn't know the people. I'd probably be in a better position to have any kind of relationship with her if she was placed with strangers than what they did.
Right, because they just created more antagonism when there's
Yes.
already family estrangement.
Yes.
This is really
Yes.
evil. This is really
It,
evil.
it is, it's so evil, Marianne, that having gone through this journey, I've concluded that it really, I believe, ought to be named as a crime against humanity. And they do
Hmm.
this to even just from children to one parent to the other, like any of this separation and alienation.
Right, right. It is a crime against humanity. I just don't know why it's not taken seriously, you know.
Could, could be because the United Nations, even at the Hague Convention, they seem it's possible that it is orchestrated in a way up top. I think from my research that perhaps it is a way that corporate nations are making money off cashing securities and bonds. That's just my possible theory on it.
Hmm.
And I know people don't have to agree with me, but that's what my research has taken me to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of money. And even over here, when a child is adopted out, they make more money off the adoption. Like I think, don't quote me, like every state is different, but it's like 8,000. And I don't
Oh,
know what
oh no.
kickback,
Oh,
at least over
millions.
here, over
Oh
here.
no, I've been told like in the millions once they get the adoption and start rolling the securities and managing the portfolio, what her social insurance number, it would be called Social Security in the United States. Here, this
Mhm.
is social insurance number. Once they start rolling that and trading it and bundling the different cases, and I haven't even begun to look. I've looked at how the case rolled many millions, and many cases
Mhm.
do, the court case, but how the actual adoption. I think we're looking absolutely huge amounts of money, and that's why I believe the Crown and the government that's well aware it get to a certain point trying to resolve it. They don't want to. They want me to go away. They want to shut this door. They want to shut it closed.
So
So
now you have a child that's 14 years old and being isolated as well. So she can't find any of this out.
she's been, no, this is why I've come to the point that maybe going out publicly or podcasts would allow her, if it reached her, to open her mind and her heart to understand there's something far deeper and greater, and that's why she may have a bit of a sixth sense in herself to know something really happened. And then in many ways it's going to have to be up to her because the government has just put uh, a huge gate. I can't go near her. um, I think, from the start, the whole thing was fraught.
Mhm, mhm,
As you mentioned, I arrived at a hospital and I was in a vulnerable situation because the father, it was a relationship that broke up and he didn't want any parts. So I was like a single mom to come. And you would think that they don't grab babies from single moms, but they do. They
mhm,
do.
mhm,
And so they just sort of brewed up a rumor based on a false test, which is proven. Like I don't take any, I don't know what that was all about. And the testing ground, which is called Mother Risk, is now they had a commission by our Ontario government that all their tests were faulty. They should have known that. They did. They had a government commission, and many hundreds and hundreds of parents were affected and lost their children by these fake hair strand tests. They didn't even give the proper measurements, and they deliberately putting in substances that weren't there. And so there were lawsuits. There continue to be. I have one right now. It's against Mother Risk Labs in the hospital for sick children that fostered all of this.
oh,
Um, and it's a very sad thing because I think at a certain point they closed up the lab, and I don't know how I'm one of the ones still in there. It's very difficult for parents. A lot of the lawyers shed off their cases who are representing parents because I think monies may have drained out of the defendants. But
mhm,
at any rate, arrived at the hospital and it was the most horrific thing you can ever imagine. My obstetrician was in holiday, so someone new was there. And I
mhm,
was told when I had a frozen epidural that there was a birth alert from Children's Aid Society. And I knew right there, oh my God, they're stealing my child. And I
mhm,
had a friend with me, and I just when she came out, I remember the doctor said, "Congratulations." And I thought, congratulations to the country that's just made money, about to make money. And that's exactly what it is.
mhm,
And that night was one of the most horrible nights of my life
mhm,
because I knew they wouldn't let me sleep with my own daughter in the hospital. And I knew that they would be coming to do all this. I remember I stayed there to nurse her to get back up to her birth weight. And when I wasn't nursing her, I was on the second floor of the hospital. I'd just given birth, right? Within 2, 3 days, looking up statutes, wondering, on the computer, what do I do? Um, and then about a week and a half later, the Children's Aid Society, which is CPS, I'll call it a mercenary, it's a contractor to it that flows more money in charity wise under the guise of charity
mhm,
investors. And it achieved an interim court order to have interim custody without even giving me notice or serving me. The two of them showed up while I was just at about 5 o'clock on an evening when I just put her to sleep in the afternoon and just nursed her in the nursery. And they said, we have a court order. But I wasn't served or noticed. The judge took no. that I wasn't served or noticed and said, I'm going to give it to you anyway. Mother should be here, should have known, should have been told, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. So they skipped due process based on the rumor of the whatever that false test was. I didn't have a chance to say like I had no voice. From going through documents, I see that it was just sort of stitched together on a rumor. They Children's Aid Society saw a chance to grab a child and make money, and they did, and they swooped in. And then about a week later, I had been traveling, staying with a friend to nurse her during the days, right, to get her back up to birth weight. And they swooped in and scooped her out at 7 very early in the morning on a Friday, deliberately so that I'd have that whole weekend of panic. And then I made emergency motions, ex parte with colleagues. We tried everything, and all it was is it bounced from one court to the next. From that, it was all about procedural because there's nothing to it. And then once they had physically grabbed and taken her and put her in a foster place, then they'd almost won because then they have the argument, which they won in the end, which is, well, we've got her. And that's say it's a property dispute because property 9/10 of the law is possession, so they possessed it. Um,
Mm,
so the fight ensued, and I noticed that they never ever seem to go to trial. They always win by motion. They always go by motions. It's an interesting thing, kind of fraudulent, I think. So they wanted a motion, and they didn't even try going on the accusation of drugs or prescription overuse because I even said I'll give you any test you want. They didn't
mm,
want to. They knew it was false. So they argued I breastfed rather than bottle fed, and that there was an awkwardness as they watched us on camera together. It cost me my house practically
mm.
to get very good lawyers. I did. I had a top lawyer, but you have to get a top lawyer at $800 an hour to
Oh,
fight something like that. So then I ended up losing my house. The Children's Aid Society found a way to separate us for about 6 months. I had to pay another, large amount of money, as mentioned, to another lawyer from Toronto to just reinstate that. It was a nightmare and it was a pure child abduction theft from the start. When they couldn't get anything to stick, I'd lost all my money. Then they had that advantage that I was lost my ability to go to well-seasoned lawyers and counsel who could at least put an argument together. I moved to Ottawa, lost my house, foreclosed, and I had to reach out to a lawyer because they were trying to get a second summary judgment motion, which is against the law. Once you lose your first one, it's not even legal. My daughter should be returned.
right,
And
right.
so I then had to pack up what I could. I lost a lot of stuff up to my aunt and uncle's. I was in absolute shock. And I reached out to a lawyer who whose name is I can put this on public record. He is incarcerated. Is that
Yep.
okay? His name is John David Coon. So if you look him up, you're going to see he's incarcerated as a dangerous offender. I didn't know this, but Coon was admitted to the bar through the Law Association of Ontario as they knew he had a criminal record of sexual assault on a 12-year-old. They still allowed him to practice and become a lawyer.
Oh my
On our
gosh.
second meeting, there was a sexual assault on me, and I was just beside myself of what to do. Um, and from then on, I just froze and didn't know what to do. I couldn't believe that I'm fighting for the life of my daughter. And what's going on? Who is this deranged man? He was wanted to meet in the evenings. And
Ah,
then he started to slowly um, sabotage my case. And I thought I was worried because I didn't have any money to get another lawyer. I had to be in court for the thing for the a second motion in about 2 weeks. And I was worried about it. And I just started like, I was almost begging for my life. Please don't harm me. Please don't harm my daughter. And he was really cold and quiet. And I thought, okay, he might do a crappy job, but I had a pretty good case. I had a parental capacity assessment that balanced out theirs. Mine said to give my child back, right? And he actually, 4 days before the motion, he had to serve and file two documents. One's an affidavit. That's the most important document because
mm-hmm.
that sets my intent. Okay. And the second one is what's called a plan of care, which is just setting out where my daughter will live. So we were working with them and writing them up. I was at home. And of course, it was a very simple affidavit. I want my daughter back.
Right.
I want my daughter and fully, and this is wrong, and no ands ifs about it. And the plan of care, I was working together to say, well, we'll live with my aunt and uncle for a little bit until I'm on my feet and get my own, putting together that whole thing. While I was doing that, um, he directed me to speak to my brother and his wife because he needed information. I didn't think that was a very good idea because we had a terrible relationship, and I knew that she had tried to wanted to adopt my daughter, my brother and his wife, my sibling and his wife, and I was kind of worried. And we'd had no contact. She even tried to suggest I give up the baby while I was pregnant. This is the same woman that professionally erased me from wedding photographs. I mean, we had no relationship. It was hatred. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, it was crazy. So she
Wow.
so I reached out tentatively because my lawyer said JD Coon, John David Coon said you need to have um, put together a plan of different aunts and uncles for the court to show a cohesive family. And while I knew the family seemed to want the adoption, it was brewed up. I mean, it's all brewed up by the CPS and the government. He said, just do it. So I called her and she was really quiet on the phone and almost angry. I hadn't talked to her in years since, she tried to suggest I give up my child. And and then I felt worried. I called her back again around 2 o'clock and said, listen, you don't have to have anything to do with it. I was just worried, like, everybody's trying to take my child. And I just kind of got worried. You know what she said to me?
Oh no.
If I had this tape recorded, it's really clear. Well, I was speaking with her thinking, I just don't want to bother you anymore. I'm a little worried. I'm fighting for the life to get my child back. She said, I'm going to adopt, she said my daughter's name, your daughter. You'll have no access. You'll never see her again. That's the key point. You'll never see her again. That's the intention of her. And there's nothing you can do about it. And I didn't know what to do. I froze. How could somebody be so mean and cruel? I can understand people being confused in the situation, and I understand she was misled. My lawyer was trying to forge up an adoption so he could money was made. But the cruelty on her end,
Oh,
and my if my daughter could know this, the cruelty and the intentions to this day, that's why this woman would they are so scared. They would have guards out not to let me off a plane. That actually happened because they know they've captured and they're stolen my daughter and continue to have her, and those are the correct terms to use. They
mm,
can fancy it up with different legal terms, but it's not going to cover up what they've done. So, meanwhile, and then what actually was happening on that day? I went to his office, nothing was finished in the late afternoon around 5, so I went home. This is what he did. Never told me. He wrote up an affidavit and purporting, I give up my child. I deem her a child in need of protection. According to the affidavit, I want nothing to do with her. She'll be my family can put something together and she's gone. Okay? Fully gone. And he forged my signature. Well, somebody did.
uh-huh.
This has became the bone of contention with trying to get it through the Crown's office and the police. Okay, so my signature's forged.
Oh.
It's about 7 o'clock at night in his firm. I don't know who else was there, and he notarized the forgery as a lawyer, as a member of the bar, this thing that he drew up very carefully. This is a serious crime. We're not talking about a lawyer who just signed on a client's behalf. No, no, he carefully did this to fully trick into the appearance of the adoption. He then wrote out and he served it to the Children's Aid Society lawyer, Kim Rendell. He then he crafted up as the second document of where she lived, the plan of care, which, as I was explaining, would have been with me. And here's my aunt and uncle, and his
Mhm.
daycares if needed. And he wrote that she would be adopted to my brother and his wife. I have nothing to do with her. Like the whole everything to the very extreme, absolute to the extreme. You couldn't believe. So he then signed on my behalf. So he served those over. He also wrote a letter at 2 o'clock around 2 o'clock p.m. to the Children's Aid Society Council saying this. I'm writing on behalf of the that's my name's on there. So my family,
Mhm.
meaning my parents and sibling and his wife, and I represent their interest to get an adoption, and I'm going to allow free. He was my lawyer, and yet so he tricked the other. I don't know what the other side should have known and said I'm now representing to get an adoption. Later, he will have written in defense that I that I was such an incompetent person that he had to do this for my own good. This was written later on his behalf in defense. So he set all of that up. So and called my mom and dad. He called my and he lied saying, I'm going to lose the child. You better get a family adoption plan. He lied to the Children's Aid Society saying, oh, she gives up the child freely. He lied to me saying, I'm preparing your documents. Sorry, I didn't get them done, but I'll see you on Monday at court. Okay. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm a little concerned because he hasn't done his due diligence. We're going to be
Mhm.
in court for the motion. And my, and yet and so that's where my view is. So I'm still fighting. I'm a little concerned about him that he didn't serve or file anything. And from the Children's Aid Society perspective of Kimberly Randell and what she's been told, I give up my child freely. Okay. From the family's perspective of my mom and dad, he's told them that, from what I can tell, that I'm going to lose the child anyway, which was effing ridiculous because I
Mhm.
had a very strong case. As I said, I had a parental capacity assessment to weigh out theirs, and theirs was not even admitted. I had a pretty good judge who was not. So I had a very, very strong case. So I got to the details of this are important because you've got a crown and a government covering this up. Okay. The Canadian, the Alberta, the Ontario government, they're well aware of this. This is over and over in documents. I walked into the courthouse. I just seen my daughter, probably one of the last two times I'd ever see her in my whole life. Okay. I was able to see her that morning. And Coon met me at the entrance. And I went over to sit in an area around the corner of the courthouse, from around the corner from the courtroom near the Crown's office. And I sat in these little waiting room chairs. I couldn't see anybody. And Coon came down to me. He knew where I was about 10 minutes before the start. I think it started at 11. And he said, good news, you're going to get your daughter back. And it wasn't insurmountable of an idea because he had tried to say we could get into a negotiation sort of a week or two prior. And he kept trying to force a mock adoption stuff. I said, no, it was really weird the way he was acting, but it wasn't inconceivable that Children's Aid Society would have given into that because they'd lost their they weren't being admitted without condition their parental capacity assessment, so it means they couldn't admit it. They didn't fulfill all the conditions. It was done that way by the judge deliberately so that it would be difficult for them to admit something that was quite fraudulent. And mine was in. So I thought, okay, they got into a there's a okay. So he said, I've got an agreement. Relax, you're going to get your daughter back. So he said, but quick, you got to sign this last page. So he had pages with him. He handed me a loan signature page. And I was hesitant. I said, "Oh, well, I better read the agreement." He wouldn't
Mhm.
give it to me. He wouldn't let it because I got to rush it. He rushed me. It was so strange. I found it so strange. Everything was happening at once. No, you can't. I got to get back. And I thought, no, I said, well, what's in it? Can you tell me? Like, you're my
Oh,
lawyer. A lawyer wouldn't lie. He was wearing a bar gown, like the which to me indicated, no, he's a member of the bar. He's got to be representing with honesty, integrity.
uh,
I said, well, okay, what's in your hands? What is it? What is it? And he said to me, you get your daughter back as we had discussed as a possibility. Although I wasn't agreeable in the past. I said, she'll be coming back to you full custody in 6 months via an integration time where you and your aunt and uncle will live back with her. So she's coming back immediately. And so you'll all live together, and it'll take about 6 months to iron out all the paperwork. So she's back. So I thought, no. So she's telling me that. I thought, okay. So she's coming back. And I figured, okay, in any contract, there's a bit of give and take. So it'll take 6 months for the paperwork. I was okay. So that's what he told me, and CES would close the file. So I signed. Okay, that's what agreement to get my daughter back. And he said, "Oh, can you put your initials here?" So I did. And he took the papers and he said, "You don't need to go back in court. Stay here. Okay, it'll take me a few minutes, just and we're all done." So he left. And he came back about 7 minutes later with a strange adrenaline, like somebody who just committed a bank theft. I think that's probably the right word. This is what he actually did. And it took me a day or two before I knew there was a problem, and then a couple of weeks before we found the forgery. Okay, hadn't known about the affidavit forgeries. Remember, all those forgeries happened. Never even saw those documents. Those were served. What he did is in those content pages, it was written up as a firm adoption consent agreement that I gave up my child to Crown Wardship for the purposes of adoption, no access, but I mean that's what it all is. And all the very careful language that the Children's Aid Society needed to make its cut, which is a child in need of protection, and they make their money. And what he did is he slipped in somewhere before he walked in the court or somewhere. He forged my initials on those content pages.
Mm-hmm.
So he must have had the ability to see what my initials kind of look like. So he forged those and he took all that in and it got handed in. I wasn't in there. I was down the hall. And while I'm thinking, okay, they're wrapping up saying, okay, this is over with. Marianne gets her daughter back and we're done. Meanwhile, the what was being presented is Marianne gives up her daughter. The Children's Aid Society got an award, and it's going to her brother and his wife. They just got to iron the details out. It took a day or so. I knew something was wrong because he wouldn't return my phone calls, and strangely got a new truck. He left the firm very quickly. He fled the country within 3 months. Um, and I didn't know something was wrong. It didn't make sense, and I didn't understand what was going on, Marianne. It's like, this is weird. And he said that, and he mentioned he wouldn't take my calls, but he mentioned to my partner at the time, he said, well, Marianne signed something. She's given up her daughter. And we thought, what? We couldn't see what it was. We didn't know what was going on. I wrote to the judge and registered letter. I went to the police in Ottawa. I went to two lawyers. I called my lawyer, a past lawyer, Gene Coleman, who was excellent. He got right to it. He said, oh my God, something terrible's happened. You need to appeal this. None of us knew what to happen. When there's crime that goes into the court and then the court becomes part of the crime, it's not proper for the court to sort it out because in my case, they never did. It should have gone somewhere way outside.
Mm-hmm.
So let me know if you want to interject a question or a
No, I mean, this
video.
is so egregious. And so this lawyer flees the country. Do you know where he went?
Oh yes, we do. Okay, here's the interesting thing. And so this is when, let's see, at first nobody wanted to believe me because this is how absolutely despicable the Children's Aid Society workers, and they're all aware. So I'm going to say the whole body of them. I reached out and said something's wrong. Within a week or two, I reached out to the workers and said my signatures were forged. And what they wrote back? This is the callous cruelness of a woman named Julia Wilkie. This is what she wrote back. Now that the Children's Aid Society, now that the court has made a final order, you have no access and you missed your goodbye visit. Can
Oh.
you imagine? Can you imagine? So they said, "Oh, we got her." So what they did is they violated. I got an appeal in. I was advised to get at least an appeal. Okay. Went to the
Oh.
police, went to the law society, did all the things I needed to do. In the meantime, um, the Children's Aid Society shipped her out of province with my brother and his wife, completely against the law and legal procedure. The ministry admitted later that they would never have granted permission and needed permission. But you see, once they get her, they get her. They got her out of, it's like out of country. They shipped her out while all this appeal was happening. And I was through the roof of what to do. I didn't know. And so I went I reported the sexual assault, and that's when, strangely enough, Patricia Urquhart, another a police officer in that division of sexual assault, said to me, sort of discouraged me from going forward. She says, you know, this her words were, we've got him on another matter, and I thought, I don't really care what, like, this is
Let's
my.
add to it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I didn't realize this. I had no idea of his predatory history, none of it. He had another mother client, same as me, at the same time, battling for her child, her little daughter, who was a 4-year-old in Ottawa. What he did is he sexually assaulted the 4-year-old little girl. Police later thought, when I spoke to the Ottawa police, they put together that Coon was going for the children through the mothers, trying to either assault them or seduce them or force them or, pressure them so they could get to the children. That was surmised by some of but you see, they all covered it. It's
Yeah.
because he was a lawyer and because the Children's Aid Society, hence through the government and all of its investors, made money. So everybody covered it and continues. So he left the firm. Um, the fellow who was supposed to do the forgery reports, Mike Hudson in the fraud department, didn't really do his job. He even told me like he wouldn't get. I had to go and hire my own forensic. I only had copies. My appeal lawyer was able to get copies of the forged affidavit and plan of care. We were just lucky how we got them. I think he might have gotten them from the Children's Aid Society lawyer who faxed them over out of courtesy. The firm to this day is burying the file. They're burying it. They're fully aware of it. They were in court with me about 6 weeks ago.
Hmm.
It was disgusting. So he ended up fleeing the country in December 2013, about December 1st. And so there were outstanding warrants for his arrest on the little girl, sexual interference. I also wondered if he didn't flee the country because of forging the documents and presenting in the court in my case.
Hmm.
So he fled and was in Cambodia, as I understand from papers. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And then all his sexual predatory history came out. Law Society, I complained, and so did the other people about the assault. He was disbarred, lost his license.
Mhm.
And then he was picked up in 2019 at an airport, and he pled guilty to the sexual interference of the child, little girl. And then he was re-incarcerated in 2022, 2023, because he was with children again. So he's deemed a dangerous offender. It's really clear. And when he
Oh.
was gone out of country, Marianne, the family courts took his word over mine. I didn't have the original of both documents to be able to get the strongest forgery reports. And it was convenient. This appeal, three divisional court judges, it was disgusting. They knew the money was at stake. And so it was a David Corbett was the lead judge. O'Mara was one of them, and Harveston Young was the third. And I note she's in child protection judge. She has experience in that. So they heard the appeal. And what they decided to do was not listen to my voice. I'm in the appeal saying, I didn't consent. How more do you want to get? I'm me.
Hmm.
I'm telling you. And it's for they wrote because my initials are on the very last page, they would just slip the whole thing as genuine. And even if it wasn't, well, she's already settled with her aunt and uncle with in a nice adoption placement, and we, the judges, think she should continue to be adopted because it didn't. So you can see how high the organized crime goes. And I tried everything. The one police agency that was excellent was MRC des Collines. I lived in Quebec for a few years, and I went into them around 2015, 2016. And they took the story and they listened and they got it. It's a forgery. It's really simple, but it's a lawyer who's fled the country. You've got a few Children's Aid Society workers involved, family members. You've got a large group. And they sent an alert out to Calgary police saying you've got a stolen child, which is the case.
Hmm.
Calgary police covered it up as and depicted me in such a way that was degrading and humiliating. I've read the reports back from very, very quite stupid um,
Hmm.
officers who said, "Oh, this is mother. She can't accept the fact that she lost her child and she's abusing prescription drugs. The mother risk falls test, right?" So I can read all this stuff later. So they refused it. They got they ended up I called Calgary police, and this is interesting because I spoke to a nice gentleman who was a detective in the fraud department, and I told him what had happened, and he was really nice. He said, "That's terrible. I will if I can run this through my department, I will call you with the team Monday." He called me later that afternoon. It was a Thursday. He said, "I'm on. We're going to do this. I got a team, and this is all around the same time." And I was happy. They were going to finally, this out in Calgary police. And about the time, I'm sure if the alert had gone out or not from Quebec, but I got a call from the same gentleman detective about half an hour later saying a woman from the family office, and this is how the criminal court and the family court criminal operations, crime entangles into the police, has shut us down. I'm so sorry. A woman named Melanie Onsescu. Can I share that out through the highlights? A detective named Melanie Onsescu canceled, had the power in the little family division of the police to shut down any possible uh, attempts or starts for the investigation. She then, when I spoke to her on the phone and said, "What's going on?" I tried to confront the situation. She was really rude to me. And I said, "Okay, well, I will then have to come out to Calgary into the family court and get and work with justice in the family court system." She then, on that, went and got a restraining order that myself and my partner back then could not get off a plane. So we couldn't attend the family court. so they abused the criminal proceedings and set it up in the mindset where my daughter is and everybody around that I was some terrible, scary woman coming to kidnap my child. They
Oh.
put posters of my, this is the kind of stuff my daughter has been exposed to think she would be scared out of her wits. If I was a little girl, I'd be scared out of my wits. So the Quebec police, having seen what they did in serving this restraining order,
Mm.
were so upset that they held a full-on investigation through their fraud department. And they concluded with detectives and interviews, this was a huge fraud, huge
Oh.
forgery case, which is good. No, they did well.
Right, right. But
They
still.
they but they sent out the alerts to the RCMP and the Calgary police. And they all ignored it and they all buried it. And then I went through, Marianne, I can't tell you how I have gone to federal court and they just keep passing the buck. I finally got a hold of the original forged consent agreement that presented in court. It was in the courthouse. They were denying it. The courthouse claimed that they didn't have a color scanner for the longest time, up until 2 years ago, to trying to deny this. I filed a private prosecution 2 years ago, which in Canada, probably in the US and other places, it's looked on as a joke. They just don't do anything. If the Crown didn't take it, they laugh at it. But I did it. I filed it, and
Mm.
against Coon, I went and got myself eventually a handwriting report from a New York forensic, which gave 100% certainty of these signatures as forgeries, even 100% on the copy. Everything was, and I went and I was struck down by the Crown. I had a judge forward the whole thing. He said, these are serious crimes. I'm going to say yes. So
Mm.
then I challenged it, tried working genuinely with a Crown prosecutor for the last year. And I don't really understand what happened, Marianne, because
Mhm.
the court and he allowed to be able to get more information, and I was very happy. We actually subpoenaed one of the partners at the law firm where Coon's in jail, but we're trying to get a hold of the original of the forged affidavit. The Crown
Mm.
prosecutor office claimed they might consider doing it if they had the original. They wanted to have the original, even though I had handwriting reports of 100% certainty. They claimed that they needed more. They kept claiming we need more, and I trusted them. I trusted they were in good
Oh.
faith. I worked with them. He asked me to put a whole and he asked me to take off my challenge to the Crown against the Crown if and he would they would be genuinely looking at it. And I did. I trusted the Crown would genuinely reconsider this. And they shot it down. As soon as I took it off, they shot it down.
Mm.
And I have overwhelming evidence. I went and got several witnesses. Um, it's a really clear cut. It's a clear case. I have the original document of an original forged agreement. You've got witnesses, you got a forged affidavit. They're aware of it. It doesn't, they could sort this out, Marianne,
Mm.
but they are choosing to bury it. Go away. Here's a
Mm.
gift certificate for a McFlurry and
Mm.
go away.
They want to suppress it. They don't want to bring it back up because then they'd have to dig up everybody else's cases,
You
and it's
got
going to
it.
be too much work for them.
I think you've got it. You nailed that because I think for a while the problem was that if you enlighten the crime and resolve it as it is public interest. I think it's hilarious to say this isn't public interest. The Crown called it. Your public courts are completely infected with forgery. I think it's public interest. It's slightly serious,
Mm.
but I think at one point there was a concern that that would then bring into hot water two or three Children's Aid Society workers, a Children's Aid Society, a lawyer who worked for them, they are in hot water. It would bring to enlight that some people like that detective on Sescu was aware. It would bring to light some nasty things. But then I think you're quite correct. They're now afraid that this case would open up so many other cases because it bears to mind whether the family court is actually a proper court. It's not an Article 2 or an Article 3 court, even neither of them. I'm questioning whether it actually goes and does its proper job or they just try to slip it through.
I just don't think they do their jobs. I mean, even over here,
No,
nobody wants to work or
no,
fix it.
no. Well, I think from what I'm seeing is the amount of money that's generated from these my blue light glasses. I don't think they work.
Oh,
The amount of money that I understand was generated from this adoption and many of these other situations,
mm,
they have cashed the check. I think that you're talking about things that have already been traded on a level of securities for the government. I think, and I had debated at one point,
mhm,
because family court's not going to resolve it. Family court isn't even a
mm,
proper court. I had debated dealing, noting Canada and Alberta and Ontario in securities fraud, which they are trading this adoption and all the ensuing documents with it. Um, but I'm not even sure that would give um, justice. I'm not sure they wouldn't shut that down. I'm so I've tried so much that I'm quite convinced that this is a crime, that entire government and may even go higher, past Canada over top. They want to hide this. And I'm almost left with if there's some way to at least reach my daughter, it must be pretty scary. Confusing. I'm sure she's at some point seeing this story. I don't know what story they've given her. I
oh,
don't know whether they've given her the story that I gave her up. I don't know whether they've given her a story that I was not, I was deemed incapable, and I did the right thing and then regret. I don't know what they've told her. But
mhm,
suffice to say, I can fully understand where she is, that it must be very, very difficult because you know what's wrong where you are. She's
mhm,
living with that woman. My brother and his spouse are in separate countries. She's
mm.
living, my daughter's living with this woman who wouldn't even let me send a birthday card. I begged, I tried to send flowers on her birthday, anything, anything. They would not. They're so cruel, so cruel,
Oh,
so cruel. I don't understand how anybody, and their parents, they have two children of their own. So
oh.
cruel.
Imagine
Um,
how they treat them.
well, the children did leave 4 provinces over for their university, and the family just exploded. I don't know. Yeah, imagine
Mhm,
how they treat them. Very cruel, very cruel. Um, and if it reaches her, this is about the only way that she can get to some people who will give her the strength and the courage to find me.
mhm,
I can't really go to her because the government will seal it so well. This is a crime they've made. I'm going to say close to $1 billion, Marianne. I know hundreds of
mm,
millions were generated when you rolled in with the adoption. This is about money and bankers.
mhm.
And I think that they will go out of their way to make life so miserable. They wouldn't. So it's got to come from her very slowly. And it's going to be very hard.
Mm.
I don't, but I'm here. I've kept her crib all these years. It's upstairs.
Oh, that's
I,
so
she never,
wrong what they
she,
did.
she never got to sleep in it one night.
Oh,
I still have the bag of all the toys and all the things, her blanket and everything, because it's the last bits with 19 boxes of legal stuff. They will witch hunt you to the ground. They don't have anything.
hmm,
It's all fraud. And you know what John David Coon wrote? He wrote the most horrific things about me when he was doing his defense to the Law Society when I complained about him and before he fled the country. But he completely um degraded my character and said the most in this letter, just like a juvenile, like she's this, she's that, she's so
oh,
incompetent. I did this adoption. He boasted about it. I think that this case to me shows me that this government is
mm,
so criminal. It's fully aware of it. I wrote it to the federal government in the federal court. I challenged that the Alberta government would not unseal the adoption. Really, they were just passing the buck. This everybody just passes the hot potato. And so I had to fight a motion, and the Alberta entities that I challenged for not at least assisting towards resolving the crime, the government of Alberta, the Attorney General, and so on. I made a mistake, a crucial mistake in the title of not putting the right party. Okay, just a
mm,
procedural error. And they motioned to have it dismissed. And I just said to in trying to fight, oh, can I just put the proper party in of the Attorney General of Canada? I wrote 68 paragraphs. I went through case law And I mean, no mother, father should ever have to do this, but I learned
Yeah.
what I could do to argue. And you have securities for, I wrote hours and hours and hours. They just dismissed it. It's not our problem. We don't, Article 3 court, federal court, we don't resolve crimes up here. But you are a crime. You have
Right.
crime. So
Well,
what do I
this
do?
same here. When I was in federal court, the the magistrate, Lanzillo, he actually admitted to not looking at my evidence. So I filed a motion to make him look at the evidence. So, how
You
bad?
filed a motion with the judge.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
my goodness.
Motion to compel look at the evidence, however I did it. So 2 days later, he responds with wanting to dismiss the case.
This is your judge who's actually supposed to be the unbiased, neutral, wise party. What's happening with these family court judges? What are they? Because they're not judges. What are they?
There
What's
are
going
lawyers that couldn't make it into very large law firms, so they run for judges.
Any chance that they may get a cut or a percentage from when children are broken off from their moms and dads that goes into their pension funds?
It's possible, I've got to look into that because I don't know if you guys heard about this over there, but in Pennsylvania, the Luzerne County Kids for Cash scandal
Yeah.
with two judges. You heard of that?
Oh, I don't know this scandal, but I'm sure we've got all kinds of scandals up here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you, and it's not a one-off. So these two judges were getting kickbacks for sending kids to these detention centers that were newly built. Okay.
Oh,
We're talking as young as 10.
oh,
Yes. I mean, the one kid, the judge asked, I don't know if it was Conahan or Ciavarella. I don't know how you pronounce that name, but asked the kid a question about football. The kid got the question wrong, and he said, "You're going to jail." And in fact, I just interviewed a Kids for Cash survivor like last week, David Thurston, and he gave some information on what went on and how you were shackled and taken into these places with cockroaches. So I don't think this is a one-off. Like what happened to you? What
yeah,
isn't
no,
a,
no, yeah.
and these kids and these kickbacks and my question is when a judge loses their campaign and all these monies went into their campaign, what happens to those monies? You know, I
You mean
mean,
when the campaign, you mean you're talking about the securities that are drawn off of our bond when you say loses the campaigns, which
yeah, like what over here we have some judges are elected, some judges are selected.
oh, I see where you're okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
or
Okay.
so, but what happens when they lose? What happens to that money? If anyone can let me know, that would be great.
That is curious. So there's money that's floating out there that they should be, and then they lose the next round and they haven't collected it yet. I wonder if they put it into a situation so that everybody benefits in some way. Because like we've been trying to trace it into how it invests. I don't know. That's curious. That's a good question because
Now,
we've had some pair. I had the stories are unbelievable. Like I
uh-huh,
mean, some of the stories, and Canada has a different care. I mean, I believe we're all in the same crime. We're under the same charter through Washington D.C. as you for family courts.
uh-huh.
Right?
Oh,
We're being considered whether it's Article 2 or 3, 1, 2, or 3. We're under the same regime. Okay, in a financial way. I think much of this sort of 15 years ago, I did was able to meet up with other parent survivors, and we all went through such trauma. The Canadian character is such that we get shamed like a witch hunt over and over. She's a witch, she's a witch, she's a
mhm.
bad parent. And it doesn't matter. You brew it up and brew it up and brew it up and brew it up. And it's very difficult to move anywhere because the mentality of those people, mostly who you go to, and 95 when you try to go for help to the system, will say, you were bad. Oh, I heard this, you lost it. And rather than taking them and go, oh, what happened? And understand what critical. So that blaming and shaming becomes in itself. Now, the United States has a large degree of that, but I would say from what I'm seeing, thank goodness there seems to be a more of a lion character in the United States and people are rising up. I think it's going to take that character to try to do that.
Hmm.
And kudos to the people in the United States because we were just all just flabbergasted.
Hmm.
Um,
hmm Yeah,
there was
because
a month. Go ahead.
I was going to say my case was a big witch hunt too. So,
When yours, how old are, when was yours?
my case started in 2015,
Yeah,
based on lies, turned into a massive witch hunt
which one?
because the ex's wife worked in the courthouse. She enjoys her job at the Erie County
Oh,
Courthouse, Pennsylvania.
no.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was all rigged.
How they're able to do this to parents and a larger scale. Some people will say this is a depopulation agenda to take out the family, to traumatize.
Hmm.
But it seems that they take away the protective good parent becomes the target parent.
Hmm.
Much more money that's spun out and much more of a greater trauma to the child. So in fact, as an inverse of what is being claimed, you've actually taking out the very protective good parent.
Right.
I'm I'm shocked. I knew of one situation with a young woman, and she didn't know they adopted out her son. She tried. She didn't even know where. She didn't do anything. I saw it. She didn't do anything. It was just an opportunity. No father, and she went to the Supreme Court. And when she got there and it dismissed her, they fined her that she'd have to pay $15,000. And a female judge said to her, "You're not a mother anymore." So if you
Creepy.
can understand the callousness, if you want to talk reptilian, callousness of all of these people embroiled in the crime. When we spoke earlier, Marianne, you asked me about, whether I practiced or do things in family. I will not do any family court stuff, anything to do with if it's a mediation. I barely do it unless a couple genuinely just wants help. I can't understand how you can profit and make money through the courts on a delicate matter that should never be in the court and should never be there for profit. So I mostly work in civil matters, civil procedure, because those are financial, it's business transaction.
Mm-hmm.
But that they've done this to families and that they torture parents to the degree that they do. I and all I can do at this point is try to reach out to my daughter. She'll
Mm-hmm.
know she'll know who I am. And if she can get the courage, I will say one thing, I was so proud of her. I'm trying to figure out at least where she was. The real estate pictures had 3 pairs of pink snow pants. I knew she's I think she's trying so hard to sort of get herself out of a cage. She's by herself with this woman, and I can't do anything. I can't go to her because I would be stopped. You'd see that they were, they would just stop me because it's a crime and so on, that the government, all of them have deemed it to be legal to be bouncing off the securities. And if I came back in there, I would interrupt their criminal flow of funds.
When she is 18, can you approach or no?
I can technically, and this is where it gets sticky because there's a poisoning element to these in these cases. You may know there's a
Mhm.
when children are alienated, they learn in order to adapt and survive in their current circumstances. They learn to reject the parent. If the
Mhm.
parent, if the target parent has contact, they'll just at a certain point say, "I don't want to see my mom or dad." And if they don't, in my case, have anything, they know what the script is. I hate my mom. I don't like my mom. I'm scared of my mom. Because if she didn't say that, she couldn't survive. The people she's with, or the woman, that wife of my brother's, is taught behavior that whatever I am, I'm a monster. My daughter in order to survive in a Stockholm situation, she has
Mhm.
to repress. But here's the thing, Marianne, for all of our kids, for all of that learning behavior to hate us and be cruel to us and reject us, right? To survive, the people doing that, these I call them captors. I'm not going to call her an adoptive mom. She's a captor, this
Mhm.
woman is such child abuse because you're actually by degrading their parent, their mom or dad, you're hitting them, you're degrading them. So
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. She's committing child psychological abuse, which is in
Oh,
our DSM-5, V995.51, and causing a false factitious belief.
yep.
So she is a child psychological abuser.
Yes.
And of course, no one does anything about that stuff.
No.
I
No.
didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, no, they deem that as you see, we've got an inversion of going on in the legal system. What's, I think it was said in an Oliver Stone movie when they looked at JFK, what's black is white, what's white is black. Okay?
Hmm.
So captor is safe and safe mom is wrong. Like you see, it's so they do this deliberately and they cause a trauma to the brain. So my daughter it will be so hard for her. I don't know how, but if she can just make the first step to somewhere, to somewhere, I mean,
Well, maybe when she goes to college.
maybe I'm hoping, but here's the problem. You also asked what happens to these kids when they're 18
Yeah.
because they become desensitized into that mode. They're taught to repress and shame them any parts of themselves that bond to me, right? To me.
Hmm.
She's or to you that she then it solidifies in her as a pattern of behavior of repression. So her whole world is gray and she may go away, but it becomes harder and harder. So the chances of her coming to me and she's 18 are like little, like to nothing. It's done deliberately that way. It's
Hmm.
not done. I think years ago when they adopted out children to strangers, and the
Hmm.
strangers had no reason to teach the adoptive children to hate their parents or anything. They didn't know them. You did have curiosity to happen, and they did seek them out. My daughter will not. She's had to survive. I hope she proves me wrong. I think she's got a fight in her. The last word she said to me showed that she has a fight in her, a spirit in her. Um, that they've in order to survive the continuous degradation to me and whatever that story is they've given her. I'm not sure. I don't know whether they've said your mom was so irresponsible, she had to, and now she regrets it, or she's a monster. I'm not sure. It's wrong. It's all false.
Hmm.
But um, it's the learned behavior, and they won't come back. Our children won't come back easily or on their own, so we have to try to reach them in
Hmm.
other ways that they might sort of get the courage to listen to these podcasts and these public
Hmm.
awareness and start to think, okay, this is what really happened. It's disturbing, but the power to resolve it is actually simpler than you think. It's like wizard. It's like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. They have
Hmm.
all the power. It's all within them.
Hmm.
But
All
it's
along.
but
Hmm.
all along, but it's very scary because they've been so conditioned. The last thing my daughter said to me when I was walking her over to go with the foster woman who she was, with when CAS just about they got the forged documents time, and I didn't know what was happening. I walked over and my daughter said, "Wait a minute, why isn't Mummy coming?" Meaning because she'd separated off in the parking lot with the foster woman. She says, "Why doesn't Mummy ever come?" And she got really mad and she said it in front of myself and another couple of CS Children's Aid Society workers in the foster. I looked at her and they looked really mad at her. I said, "I am so proud of you.
Oh.
I am so proud of you. And I never, never want you to stop asking that question and the most important questions." And I'm so proud of her to that day. And I hope she remembers that there's a whole different layer and that it's safe to come back and to come to through those of us like yourself, Marianne, those of us who know the crime. We're here and you can
Hmm.
have your life back because we know it's a crime and we can help you. And
Hmm.
it's not a simple thing, but we're here. And I hope that they get this message to your children also, all the children.
Yeah.
They're making
Oh,
a lot of money.
oh, too much money. Too much.
It's a lot of money.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
It's probably so much, but I think I've put so
Oh.
much packed it that to my sons that the alienation ensued so badly that still due to that mother was tested in the witch hunt they are estranged. My elder one will sometimes see me, but it's so hard within himself because it's easier for him to start like he's at the questioning stage, but he's still it's just he's buying into the witch hunt and he's not
Hmm.
able to look deeper. And I'm not saying to blame you got to look deeper and deeper how everybody's anger was all brewed up and used, and what really gained was the government. He's not quite there yet, but my elder son's showing some really good strides. Okay, I'm proud of him that way. My younger son is his own world, won't talk to me, so that's
Hmm.
done. Alienation. And my daughter, I mean, I love you all so much, and
Hmm.
if I had only known, I would have gone out of the country somewhere. I would have
Yeah,
gone to Russia or North Korea. Would have been a lot safer to have children. Thank you for this time, Marianne. If anybody has ways to wanting to reach out to contact me, they can do so through Marianne. You think you've got a way?
sure. Yeah, they can contact me through dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com, and I will forward the message to Marianne Pertz. And I thank you. Don't jump off, okay? This is Slam the Gavel, a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and more platforms that even I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you, Marianne, for sharing your story. And, we'll just continue to expose what's going on